Your mission is campers. Whereabouts' mission is making their experience coordinated and connected. Whereabouts is the only camper management system that keeps parents, admin, and staff in sync in real time, so every camper's day runs with confidence, clarity, and care. Check them out today at whereaboutsapp.io. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Intentionally Intentional Leaders, a Go Camp Pro podcast. My name is Matt Wilfrid. My pronouns are he, him, and I am thrilled to dive into another edition of this unique interview series. Each episode, our guest rolls a 20-sided dice to spark personal and campy reflections through three lenses: memories, insights, and beliefs. Today, I am incredibly thrilled and honored to introduce a guest who truly embodies this show's philosophy. Joining us today is Travis Allison. Travis is one of the primary architects of the modern camp industry's culture of sharing and collaboration. His influence spans continents, which you can track through the Go Camp Pro podcast, racking up over 230,000 downloads in over 142 countries. His massive newsletter following, founding the Summer Camp Professionals group, which at last count I think had about 32,000 members when it was at its biggest, and speaking to camp professionals all over the world. Whether it's through his consulting work, his influential publications like the Camper Recruitment and Retention Playbook, the Resilient Camp Blueprint, or being one of the first voices to talk about camp on Twitter, Travis's true gift is elevating the industry so that parents insist on camp being a part of their child's development. He has dedicated his career to ensuring unique voices are represented and that camp professionals everywhere feel seen and heard. I have personally known Travis since I was a 10-year-old camper who insisted that he let me call home because I hated camp and wanted to go home because I was a whiny little 10-year-old. He did say no to that, but as I said in my wedding vows since then, I owe so much of where I find myself in the camp industry and personally to the culture of the spaces that he's stewarded and the opportunities that he has presented me. I am so grateful to have Travis here in the hot seat and thrilled to welcome you, Travis, to Intentionally Intentional Leaders. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks, Matt. That's such a great intro.
Well, welcome, Travis. I know that we are co-sharing this hosting seat, doing it with a couple industry professionals. So you know how the game works, but do you have your D20 with you?
I do. I brought out the big gun.
Okay, that's great. Travis is also partially responsible for my love of D&D, and we get to play Dungeons and Dragons every so often together. So if I call him Zoic by his camp name, you'll understand that. But if I also call him Rick Rack by his D&D character name, you'll have to forgive me, audience, for that one. So Travis, each question, I'll get you to roll the dice. The number that comes up selects your question for that turn, and we'll move through 3 rounds: memories, insights, and beliefs. And don't forget that you have 2 special powers for this. So you have 1 skip. So if a question isn't hitting right or you want to go with something else, just say skip and we'll skip it and pick a new one. And then you also have 1 flip. So once per game, you call flip. I'll answer the question first, and then you'll answer it. Okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. All right, well, let's get right to it. Please go ahead and roll your D20 and tell me what number you get.
I got a number 7.
Number 7. Can you tell me about a moment in your life where you could have chosen a different path?
Yes, absolutely. The shortest version of this is that I went to university at Carleton University in Ottawa, Ontario, and I was on an international development path just because I was passionate about making a difference. And so I was taking a lot of politics and lots of interesting courses in my first year. But where the split or sort of decision making happened is that at the end of that first summer of college, I ended up staying in the city and working in the city instead of going to camp. And by the end of that summer, I was on a camping trip with a bunch of friends of mine on Labor Day weekend. And I enjoyed that camping trip so much more than the fun summer in the city with lots of partying and doing fun things with my work. But the camping trip is like made me miss camp so much that at that moment I changed my major and focused on developmental psychology because I thought it would make me a better camp director, and then I was all in.
That's amazing. I actually didn't know that international development was in your field. I'm curious, if you say you took that path, and what would be like an ideal job that you could have found yourself in today at your current age had you gone down that path? Where do you think you would have liked to end up or seen yourself at that time?
I mean, I think I was really interested in the politics of South and Central America, and which is interestingly timely today.
Mm.
But there were some really interesting organizations based out of Canada that I thought had really great missions. And the Canadian Food Grains Bank is one of those. I grew up on a farm, and the Food Grains Banks puts away extra grains to be given away to people both as seed grains and as food grains. Mostly food grains is in the name. And I thought that was a really interesting mission. I also thought that the Mennonite Church did some really interesting and thoughtful developmental work, much more than the Presbyterian Church that I grew up in. And they were just really great leaders in the kind of development that brought in people to, instead of doing for them, doing with them. And I thought that was really interesting work. So something like that, I think, would have been my path. Who knows? I don't know. I might have gone into politics by now if I'd taken that path.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, Travis for mayor. I'll say it all day.
Well, I mean, I've thought about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll soft launch your campaign right now. That's what we're
Sure.
doing, I think. Okay, that's great. Let's roll again for question 2.
Great. It is 13.
What was the most significant year in your life so far?
Well, I think as a whole year, probably the year I graduated from university, I worked as a seasonal camp director that summer. And at the end of the season, I begged that board to give me an opportunity to present a plan to them to actually return to a full-time year-round camp director. They had that, and they'd canceled that position to get rid of that director, and they'd gone a few years with just seasonal camp directors. And so, I mean, in terms of big life impact, I had that summer. I thought we did really great things. Then by January 1st, I was working full time at that camp. And I think, because I was 23, I think that I was hired by that board who said, well, we've got nothing to lose because the camp was in a lot of trouble at that time. And so we got nothing to lose. So an enthusiastic 23-year-old who will work themselves till they're exhausted might be a good choice. And I think it worked out well for them.
I think so too. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So that was a pretty impactful year in terms of the rest of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I said it in the intro, but finding someone who's going to give you that shot, I think that if that there's a lot of camp pros out there that would be so lucky to have a board or another person believe in them to give them that shot. That's ultimately the catalyst. And unfortunately, that it had to happen because of a bit of a last ditch effort. But sometimes it's whatever gets you in the door, right?
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Okay, one more question in the memories category. So go ahead and roll your d20.
All right. That is a 9.
A 9. What is the biggest risk you've ever taken?
To be frank, I think that I did a lot of partying in university, and alcohol and my ADHD meant a lot of dumb choices. I was also kind of like I could never stop being a camp counselor, and so amongst my friends from college, I've always been known as the camp counselor, that I
Right.
could party with them and sort of keep everybody corralled and safe. But I think I made some dumb decisions that
Mm.
could have been terrible. So that's probably the right answer to that.
I think that's fair. I think it'd be so easy to we make a ton of decisions that have inherent risk in them in the
Yeah,
camp world as camp professionals, but there's always this intentional safeguarding that we set up so that even our risky decisions have a bit of a fallback or something like that does it. But in our personal lives, we don't often make those calculative
sure.
decisions, especially
Yeah,
in those university years, right? So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
What about in your talking about from the camp sphere? Can you think
Mhm.
about like a operational risk or organizational risk that you took that maybe was like super valuable long term?
Well, I think that starting the camp consulting business its own way was quite a risk because we're starting from nothing. I didn't have salary or insurance or any of that stuff. And so I think that was pretty risky. Like, who knew that there could be enough money to make money as like an advisor to camps? I had to be really thoughtful about that and definitely creative about getting my name out there. But I think that was, I mean, I could have gone from being executive director of a nonprofit camp to going to be the executive director of some environmental or developmental nonprofit. And that would have been kind of a sideways, pretty easy move. But starting the business was definitely a risk. I'm not good at not being the boss anymore.
Mhm.
I did have a job. Like a couple years after camp, I had a job for 10 months and got fired because I'm just not good at not being the boss. And it was their company, in all fairness, and they wanted to do it their way. I just didn't, I couldn't stop my face from showing them that I thought they were missing some opportunities.
Right. That is that hits home. So Travis, I want to take a quick pause from the game show format and I want to hear more about the Resilient Camp playbook that you have put so much time into over the last couple of years. And what not to give too much of it away, but what I love about it is that it's such like an equity setting model for camps, that this is a tool that for private camps that have well established like teams and budgets and long-term vision, it's something that they can use, but it's also for the camps that, I think you and I grew up at, the smaller nonprofits with a board and maybe one year-round staff member, maybe, that they can find this resource valuable. So can you tell us a bit more about that and like what your thought process was in creating it?
Well, it definitely comes. I mean, been doing consulting for camps, specifically in the marketing communications with a little bit of strategy and board work, but never the main focus. I've been doing it for 15 years. But the thing I kept finding is that in the last number of years, and we're recording this in January 2026, but in the last 3 or 4 years, the number of people in in senior leadership in our industry changed. Like some stats say 2/3 of senior year-round leaders at camps changed in 2022 and 2023.
Mhm.
And the number of people who would have a discussion with me and I would offer suggestions and they would just be like, I just can't handle any ideas that I acknowledge are good. I can't handle anything more right now. Though I think it'll save us time. Like, even if you are making me a guarantee that you will 10x the amount of money that I spend with you, which I have done with people before, they would say, I just can't. And that
Right.
level of overwhelm and overwork is very problematic. And, camp as an industry loses good people because the industry expects so much of leaders. They expect them to give so much and to not get paid for it and not be acknowledged for it and all of those things. All of that led me to sit back and say, marketing communications is great. Like, it helps people get more campers and fill beds. And even if they're smart about it, they can use what I teach to get more staff. But people need a system, and I call this the operating system, to give themselves space to think big picture, to get beyond the worries of the next 48 hours or the next week. And if there are ways that I can be the bridge between sort of a systems mindset, which tends to make people in the industry a little bit antsy, especially for people who are really people focused, it sort of feels, I don't know, mechanical or industrial or something. I can help translate that because for me, the whole purpose of this is to clear space for camp leaders to have the time to spend with people, to
Right.
invest in their staff, to have the time to talk to parents. And one thing that strikes me as a big reason to have this kind of space. When Beth and I were camp directing, I had a mom who called me up and said, I want to send my kid to camp, but I am terrified. And I spent an hour on the phone with this mom talking to her about everything, and she had lots of questions, and I could invest in that. If I was camp directing today, I would still do it, but I would have probably two-thirds of my brain solving other problems while not really listening to her, and or
Right.
triaging email while I was talking to her. And I think we need to give good people the space to do that. I think it's what makes us special, our care for our staff and our campers and our families. And a lot of people don't have the space to do it. So if I can come in and install systems that help people make all that easier so they just have a bit of time for big picture thinking, and our industry needs big picture thinking in the worst way, I
Yeah.
think there's going to be a lot of struggles around staffing in this coming summer, even though people have had a lot of struggles in staffing for the last 5 or 6 years. I think it's going to be a lot worse. I think that we setting up systems allows you to keep the cost of camp as low as you possibly can while still making it livable for your organization. And that's the kind of work that I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's such a truism that like people get into camp because they love people, whether it's
Yeah.
kids, right?
Yeah.
They love working with kids and those interactions. And then sometimes that grows to like loving working with staff teams and loving supporting parents. And it feels like as the world grows and demands have shifted and changed over the years, that so much of the operational things get in the way of the people thing. So I love that this
Yeah.
is about freeing up space, and it's using AI, it's using those tools, but not to replace the things that we're good at, which is the human
Yeah.
interactions. It's to make, our communications tighter so that they are better for the people that are reading them, so people can make better choices because you've made your communication clear. I think that's something that I've taken away from looking at all of it. So if Travis, if people want to, take the first step into understanding this, or to learn more about how it can help their camp, where should they go?
Well, the thing I'd like for everybody listening to do is go and take our diagnostic. And so we call this a resilient blueprint operating system, or the interchangeably with the resilient camp blueprint. If you go to rbos.pro, rbos resilient blueprint operating system.pro, there's a diagnostic there, and it is sort of a place setter for you. It is the way that you can take this diagnostic, see where you're at, and then look at places within this operating system where you can make small changes that'll have big impacts. That is my primary focus as soon as I start with people is like, what is the smallest thing we can do to have the biggest impact? And that's a constant question with clients.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, thank you. Let's get back to the game. We are in the insights category now, so please go
Right on.
ahead and roll your d20.
That is an 18.
18. Which is easier to apologize for, when you've hurt someone else or when you've disappointed yourself?
Oh, I think when I've hurt somebody else. I mean, I think that that's good long term. That's what I learned from camp um, is to try to be thoughtful about the people around me. And although I definitely need processing time when, like, I've said something dumb in an argument, and then it sort of just actually physically turned myself around and said, that is not, that's not right. What I just said is not right for you. Like, I should never have said that. And let me rephrase that. And so that, asking for a bit of grace in the time of that, but that I think is easier. I mean, it's both hard, but I think it's probably the easiest of them.
And I think camp people we're hard on ourselves. I think everyone's hard on themselves too, and it's harder to like asking yourself for forgiveness can sometimes be harder. And when you see the person, you're not looking at a mirror, but you can see another
Right.
person, and it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I need to apologize to this
Sure.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I think it is often easier for me to understand others better than myself. I think that's changing a lot in the last 5 years in particular, but yeah,
Yeah, 100%. Okay, go ahead and roll your d20, please. Now, question
all
number
right.
2 in insights.
That's 4.
for. Travis, how do you get in your own way?
The biggest version of that, I've talked a lot in the last number of years about my own mental health, and very strongly related to that is my own ADHD. And so I get in my own way when a project gets to the point that it gets a little dull. I will get excited about something else. And so I then basically drown myself in lots of fun projects that are at the fun stage, and none of them who are at the completion stage, or very rarely ones that are at the completion stage. And I have to just keep reminding myself I have to go to the thing. And often I have to keep saying to myself, is this thing going to make us grow as a company? And if not, then I have to put it away. And there's lots of interesting things to do in the world that I would love to do. And so I just have to keep reminding myself, but that's definitely how I get my own way.
And Travis, I've appreciated over the last 5 years, you've been super open about your ADHD diagnosis and mental health. I think in a way that has not been as candid in the industry and amongst thought leaders. I think in
Yep.
general, and
Yep.
I've really appreciated that. I've learned stuff about myself because of your openness. So for people, whether it's they have diagnosed ADHD or not, or they if they're encountering that similar problem, I hear you saying that to get yourself out of that, it's like, what's the mission? Staying focused on the mission. But is there any other tips that you would give people who are in similar situations where they feel like they've taken on a lot of projects and some are getting dull, but they might still be important? How do
Yeah.
you like navigate that landscape and make the best decision going forward?
Yeah. To start the answer off properly to that, if you are in that situation as a camp person, as any kind of person, it is one, you're not alone. A lot of people with ADHD are drawn to the camp world because it's so dynamic, and so there's a lot of us, but not a lot of us talking about it. That's one. So people know what you're going through and are also going through it. And for me, I mean, I have little tips and tricks that I use that work one day and not the next, and I forget to use them the day after that, and I have a terrible day. A perfect illustration of this, Matt, is I because we're recording in January, that's all at the end of the year wrap up things, from all the different services, and we don't use Spotify. We use YouTube Music, or the YouTube whatever premium it is. So we use the YouTube music thing. But the YouTube itself Wrapped gave me their thing, and I watched videos from over 3,000 YouTube channels last year.
Mm,
And like just the fact that that happened freaks me out. Like it's terrifying and it's anxiety producing. And a lot of those things were helpful. A lot of those things gave me direction, but it is what it's like living in my brain where I will just look for stimuli constantly. And, I have to just be thoughtful about those things so that I'm not increasing my own anxiety by having too many open tabs in my brain or just things that I'm super excited about. And so I would say one of the things that I have learned over time is that whatever side projects or things that I'm interested in or things that I feel passionate about over time, I have started a lot of things in any of those things and not finish them enough to put them out in the world. But camp stuff I will do. Camp stuff I will finish. I won't finish it all, but I'll finish the important stuff. And my brain just won't do that for anything else but camp. It
mm,
is it's just a thing I have to acknowledge. I get excited about stuff. I'm on a committee for our county, trying to encourage active transportation in Oxford County. And that's really interesting stuff. I'm passionate about it, but I couldn't work in it because I just wouldn't finish stuff. But camp stuff,
right,
I'll do it.
right.
And so I have to. I mean, it's good because I love camp, and I'm thinking about camp all the time. But I have to be really intentional about that.
Yeah, I think it's not just you said kind of off the start, we said like, what's your mission? But it's also like that true passion. I think there's so many frameworks that you can go through to determine what that is for you, but to like stay focused on those things before taking on projects in other spaces. Yeah.
And I said this quite often when I was a camp director, and it is still totally true, where people would say, "Oh, you work at camp full time as a director. You must love doing things with kids." And my honest answer was, I don't. Like, I love doing stuff with teens and young adults.
Mhm.
And so I have never really been super drawn to the program side, other than I love getting certificates. Like, I loved getting high angle rescue courses and my woofer, and all of those things were really good learning challenges.
Right.
But I don't love working with kids, but I love what camp does. I love that camp did what it did for me and a lot of the people around me. And so my brain just works out, how do I make this easier for those people that do love kids? And that's why they're here. And how do I give them more chances to do that? And how
Right.
do I make sure that more kids get the camp opportunities that I had?
Right. Yeah. 100%. Okay. Thank you for that. I think this is question 3 now in Insights that we're
No
at.
idea.
Maybe, I don't know. Go ahead and roll your
Sure.
dice, and we'll see where we
All right.
go.
Okay. That is a 1.
1. Okay. In D&D world, a critical failure, but we haven't quite built the mechanic into the show. Well, the season
Mhm.
2 of Intentionally
Sure.
Intentional Leaders, we'll have that in there.
Yeah.
But a good question nonetheless. What is your best defense against the classic camp like week 5 despair? Whether that be amongst the staff team, that slog that kind of happens midsummer. What is the best defense against that kind of despair, and how did you build, or how do you suggest people build that defense?
Right. The best defense is to send everybody to bed early. Like,
Mm,
everybody, you're not allowed to stay up past 9:30. As soon as people catch up on sleep, the whole mood of camp turns around.
mm,
And that would be the first thing I did every single time. That would be like, man, things are going weird here, and everybody's grumpy, and be like, yep, early to bed. That's the rule.
yeah,
And sometimes I would want to do 2 nights in a row because I saw how much, but Beth wouldn't. Beth's like, people need time away from their kids. You can't make
yeah,
them go to bed with their kids. But
yeah,
even if I was running day camp, I would find a way to make sure that my staff, I would do everything I could to make sure my staff got rest in that situation. Like,
mm,
you just need rest.
hmm,
And so, yep, that's the thing, is get some sleep. Early to bed for you. Early to bed for
yeah,
everybody.
yeah. ETB. We use that language in our household today, and what I like you and Beth, to give people the insights of someone who was a camper under Travis and Beth. Like, you don't, as a camper, I remember moments of the two of you as camp directors, but like there weren't a ton of like rules at Cairn. Like, there was the
Mhm.
4 S's, right? We had to follow the safety. Like, is it safe? Is it good stewardship of the environment? Does it build my self-esteem? Does it serve the community? And you answered those questions, and it was good. But like, you guys didn't throw around your power a lot as directors. It wasn't like get in line, brush your teeth, like all like brush your
Yeah.
hair, wear a uniform. That wasn't the type of space. And I think like, but when it was ETB, and as staff too, like when it was ETB, it was ETB. And I think
Yeah.
that was like a very thoughtful use of your power in that way, which is literally like, go to bed, you dummies, because you're going to stay up as staff. You're going to stay up until curfew every night. You're going to stay up until 1. And that is
Yeah.
ultimately not going to serve yourself or the camp experience the best way. So I think it's thoughtfully using your power as the director in that way.
Yeah. And my philosophy as a camp director, and this came early, but I think it's what I do now, is like, I want to help people do this great. I don't need to be the center of this. I loved having things that I've like little things that I was known for, like a chant like one duck, or the jig of joy at the end of a meal. Those kind of little things that people would, as campers, wouldn't see me do once or twice a session. But I got in, like, this person wanted to fire me in the middle of a summer because she was mad that I wasn't in front of the whole group with my guitar leading every song. And I just had to say, it's not my job. Like my job is to make them good at it.
Hmm.
And I'll teach them and support them and be there with them and play with them lots of times, but it's not my job to be the center of attention. I don't believe in that kind of philosophy. I do think that every camp director should have some sort of magic trick that they can pull out that everybody loves and looks forward to.
Hmm.
But yeah, I've not been a center of attention all of the time person. I've definitely taken it when I needed it and put it on sometimes when I didn't want to or didn't feel good about it, just didn't feel up to it. But yeah, my job then and now is help smart, caring people take care of other people.
Right. And sustainability is a thing, right? Like if
Yeah,
our friend Joe Richards calls it the cult of the camp director, that if
right.
everything revolves around
Yeah,
the camp director,
totally.
when that camp director gets called away for something more important than
Yeah,
playing guitar at campfire, campfire needs to be just as magical as it would be as
yeah,
if you were leading it, right? So I think that's a lesson that I think every camp director needs to hear. And once you have like 3 years, you can you
yeah.
might understand that it can't be that way. But it's a
Sure.
hard lesson to learn for sure.
Yeah.
This Go Camp Pro podcast is brought to you by Whereabouts, a new product from our friends at Camptivities. Ever had that heart-stopping moment when a camper accidentally goes home on the bus, but their guardian was supposed to pick them up? Or when you can't confirm everyone's arrived at camp until noon, even though the morning meeting ended hours ago? What about those little moments that slip through the cracks? Like staff not knowing it's a camper's birthday or missing a special event reminder? You're not alone. Camps everywhere are saying the same thing. They need a less manual, more connected way to manage the camper experience from drop-off to pickup. Introducing Whereabouts, the only camper management system that updates in real time across 3 interfaces: parents, admin, and staff. The parent app is attendance forward and includes all the features families expect: facial recognition photos, event calendars, news feeds, and more, giving parents peace of mind and your team fewer calls to handle. One system, one set of data, everyone in sync, all the time. From knowing where every camper is, to reducing office chaos, to helping staff feel more connected, Whereabouts help your camp run smarter, not harder. Book a demo today at whereaboutsapp.io. So we're going to move on to our last category, which is beliefs. So we'll do 3 questions from beliefs, and you can go ahead and roll your D20.
All right. It is a 3 for this section.
Do you think that people can really change?
Yes. I do. I've seen it, and like that's what camp is. People change all the time. Like it's one of the great privileges of this job that you get to see people when they're young, how much they change from one summer to the next.
Mm.
You get to see them try on different selves over years and watch them finally settle into a thing. I think camp provides a safe place to try out all that stuff. But yeah, I think people can change for sure. I think that it is for people who are interested in change. There are lots of people that aren't interested in it, and they won't, obviously, unless something drastic and radical happens to them. But, I'm drawn to people that are learners, that are changers, that are people that look for solutions. And those are people who are changing every day.
Mm. So you're saying people can, some people choose not to. You think that
100%. Yep.
yeah. Okay.
For whatever reasons, they don't have the energy, they don't have the time, they don't care to, it feels safer not to. But yeah.
Mm. I buy that. I buy that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question number 2 in beliefs. Go ahead and roll.
Okay. 16.
Okay, we're going super existential here. How often do you think about death?
Oh, I'm going to flip that one on to you, Matt.
Good. That's a good use of flip. I th- Not much. I don't
Mhm.
think. I mean, I feel very blessed with the life that I'm living now, and I what I often think about is I'm a huge like maximizer. Like I really try to think about like what's the most efficient way I can do this, or what's the best
Yeah.
way that
Yeah.
I can like show up for my kid or show up for the organization I'm working for. Like I'm a
Yep.
very like try to do the best I can always, and like to my detriment a lot of
Sure.
a lot of times. Like
Yeah.
I had a conversation with my partner about how sometimes I find parenting frustrating because of how slow it is, and not slow like I can
Yeah.
sit and play blocks for a long
Yeah.
time, and
Yeah.
I love that stuff, but like the development of a child is not a quick process. Like it
Yeah.
happens over days and with
Yeah.
consistency. And that sometimes that's where I struggle because I'm like, oh, what's the best way to play this game or
Sure.
like
Yeah.
get this brain function for my daughter? I don't know, which gets me into trouble. But I think that I don't think about death because I think I'm going to be doing that until the day that I do die. And then when I die, it's over. And it's you can't maximize death. So I think
Yeah.
that's where I stand
It's
on it.
pre-maxed.
Yeah, yeah,
Death is pre-maxed.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same. I don't really think about it. I think I've had the privilege to not think about it, and it's not like I
Mm,
haven't had loss in my life,
right.
including one of my best friends from the time that I was about 14 years old died about 10 years ago, and so obviously died really young. And, despite that and loss of grandparents and family members and, favorite camp people, I don't get too stuck in death.
Okay, we're on our last question, if you could believe it. So go ahead and roll for it.
Right on. Number 11.
Oh, this is perfect for you. This question. This is like the Travis question. Where should technology be invisible, and where should it be front and center at camp?
Oh, at camp. Well, I almost feel like I've answered this in that I think using technology as camp professionals is such a tool for
Mm,
giving you more space for people. And so, yeah, I believe in having technology at camp, but I'm a tech guy. I love cameras and, all of those things. But I do think that there are times when people should be without their phone and should just focus on what's in front of them. I would say that if I went back to camp directing today, or we went back to camp directing today, I probably would never not have my phone, but I just want to be able to take pictures and, look up fun things at lunch because I think they're funny. But I I think it's important that kids have a break from that. I have a fully formed brain. So I think it's important that kids and our staff have a break from that.
yeah, I agree. And there's a difference. I think some people are very, religious about their like no phones at camp,
Mm.
period, full stop. And I think there's a difference between having it to take a photo of an amazing moment and capture a moment versus, I'll fully admit to being the camp director who was checking my email at the lunch table when I could have been having conversations with kids or I could have
Right.
been having
Yeah.
conversations with staff. And eyes are on you as the camp director. So if you're checking your
Yeah, I'm
email,
always teaching.
that's the same as a staff member checking their texts. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter that it's camp business. It's the perception in that moment of
Yeah.
being unplugged and using it thoughtfully. And yes, and in case people didn't catch it in the crosstalk there, your philosophy of I am always teaching, IAAT. I have it on one of my 7 water bottles around me,
Yeah.
that sticker.
Yeah.
And that was a philosophy that I taught to camp staff all the time
Yeah.
is that we're teaching those lessons. But when it comes to technology, yeah, I think in my work with talking to politicians about summer camp and
Mm.
whatnot, like the one of the huge benefits of camp is that it's a tech-free space in that sense for people. It's still something that people believe to be foundational about the camp experience, giving room for there's lots of different types of camps out there that have tech more integrated, but from a like break from social media, a break from the algorithm, camp is still one of those sacred spaces in that way that I think is important that we hold on to.
Yeah. I think about this as we've been talking, it made me reconsider my answer. Like I think electronics, that's my rule. It's a tool, and like any
Yeah.
other tool, it helps us. It as long as it is helping us provide a safe space for kids to feel noticed and appreciated, then it's the right tool. But I keep thinking more about this resilient blueprint operating system, and one of the big principles of that is that we are constantly looking for the smallest possible ways that we can make positive change at camp. And so some of that might show, those systems might show. So, for example, I worked with our old camp, I worked with the senior staff on trying to set up the maintenance closet so that it would be effective. They, wouldn't spend as much on inventory. People could get in and out of there, get what they needed. And that means you put labels on lots of things. And, those old basement workshops that had the painted outline of a hammer because the hammer goes in that spot. Like
Right.
those kind of things, I think kids and young adults should see.
Hmm.
And that's technology, it's a system. And so if there's a way to get them in that mindset of I am looking for ways to improve things every day, and my philosophy around that is always if we can build a culture that everybody makes camp 2 seconds better every day, it's such a small change that it's easy to make, and a lot of people can just make that change without having to get permission. But those add up because it's a big community and there's lots of people, and CIT LITs get that philosophy, and then it goes down to the kids. Then camp is just better. Everything in the world is, to me, comes down to sitting around a table with camp people or campers and laughing till you cry. And sometimes showing those systems tells people how they can get to more of those moments. They can be right on, focused in front of them. But so I guess it's a both answer.
I agree. I agree. I think it's what it comes down to is eliminating the barriers that prevent you from being able to sit at the lunch table and laugh till you cry.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
every day those barriers get bigger and bigger, and you can get lost in the rabbit hole of technology and tools and AI and all of those things. But at the core, the reason you say laughing till you cry is because I know you can like ascribe 5 core memories to you doing that. And that is what
Yep.
like keeps our heart in the industry through those
Yeah,
days that are inevitably going to be slogs of having to fill out government paperwork or
yeah,
do your accreditation stuff, all the stuff that like we're not, that doesn't fill our hearts, but is
sure.
necessary to get done. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, Travis, that brings us to the end of our time here. But so first of all, thank you for your transparency. I mean, I didn't expect anything less from a conversation with you. But we have one request, as you know, we end our intentionally intentional leaders with a nomination. Someone who you think is a thoughtful, intentional camp leader or director that you would nominate that we interview next on intentionally intentional leaders. Who is that for you?
That is Jackie Rail. Jackie is the owner director with Gabrielle of Camp Woro, Girls Camp North of Montreal. And people hear from Gab quite a lot on our network because she's one of the co-hosts of Camp Code, and she was a founder with me of the Camp Hacker podcast. But Jackie is just really, it's incredibly intentional, and the level of intention that is the culture at Waro is remarkable. And Jackie was an early mentor of mine before I was working with Beth, and gave me a lot of time and space that I don't think I quite earned. I earned it later, I suppose, with her, but she was just really open and sharing. So Jackie Rail's my pick.
What that is an amazing pick. I think I will have to fight you over who gets to do the interview, or I want to at least be in the room.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Great.
yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Travis. I appreciate this, and thanks for being on the podcast and being a guest for once, huh? That's pretty
Yeah,
nice.
that's fun. That's really fun. And thank you. This was great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Thanks for the evening, friends.
The Camp Hacker podcast is brought to you by Beth and Travis Allison, summer camp leadership training and marketing consultants. Thanks for listening. Camp Hacker, bringing your world into focus.
Hey, Camp Pros. We love that our industry is built on sharing. In order to foster that spirit, if you've gotten even one good idea from a Go Camp Pro podcast, masterclass, from the Summer Camp Professionals group, a conference, or wherever else, we ask that you give credit where credit is due. That way, it'll encourage camp pros to keep freely sharing their ideas and make the camp industry as a whole better.